You guys have been so patient and so kind. And I am happy to say, welcome back to the Slumflower Hour podcast. We are now on season 3. Sorry, what? Season 3? How exciting! Well, I want to just jump right into season 3, really, and talk about when a guy gets too comfortable. Ironically, even though we're discussing a guy being too comfortable, this is something that is quite uncomfortable to talk about. And it's probably going to be uncomfortable for you to listen to. Now, I say this is uncomfortable to talk about for me personally because I just feel like it's not nice to be the bearer of bad news. And I'm always the bearer of bad news because I'm always the one telling you, I don't think that man likes you. And I come across like some sort of negative Nancy, bitter auntie, hater of men. But the reality is, like, there are signs when a guy has become too comfortable. And I just feel like once a guy becomes too comfortable, you in danger, girl. Not the kind of danger where he's going to harm you necessarily, but the kind of danger where I think it might be time for you to review this relationship and maybe reconsider whether it should exist or not, babe. So off rip, right? One of the indicators to know when a man has gotten too comfortable, from my lived experience and from what I've witnessed happen several times in the lives of women around me and women who have messaged me online, there's a common pattern I'm seeing. It's when he starts feeling comfortable with doing silent treatment to you. I'm telling you, girl. You see, when that guy is like going quiet on purpose, especially when you're having a bit of an argument, but like he's going quiet because he wants you to feel his absence. The reality is he's trying to punish you, but it's not the punishment of like, I'm going to be really mean to you. He wants to punish you with his absence because he knows how much it affects you when him and you argue. I just feel like, look, if a guy feels comfortable doing that sort of thing, he's too comfortable. Because when you think about when you first met him and that connection was still brewing and he was in that place where he still wants to, I guess, prove himself to you and get you to warm up to him, and he's still in that excitement of getting to know you, he can't afford to go quiet on you because he knows that if he goes quiet on you, he's breaking the energy up a bit and that kind of affects the vibe. So he's going to not go quiet on you. He's just going to be apologetic if he's the one in the wrong. Or even if he is in the wrong, he's not going to let it evolve too much into an argument because he's not in a place where he's comfortable enough to take that risk. But when a man has gotten too comfortable, I've seen it happen and I've experienced this myself where it's like the fact that he feels okay to go quiet means, okay, he's getting this attention elsewhere then. Sorry, I have no choice but to assume that you're whatever it is that you need from me, you're getting somewhere else. So you can afford to go quiet on me. That's crazy. That's crazy, girl. That's crazy. So you might be wondering, well, how do you navigate that kind of thing then? If a guy has gone quiet on you and there's room to assume that he's probably gotten too comfortable, like what do you do? Well, let me tell you what you do. You have to go quiet back. Listen, okay, before I dive into this response of what I would do personally if a guy went quiet on me and I'm dating him, I want to make it clear, yeah, I don't give relationship advice in the sense that I'm here to help you and your man remain in harmonious union. No, I'm here to share ideas on how to get the best you can get out of dating men, because this has to benefit you and you need to have the upper hand. So technically this is bad advice because I'm a bad girl. So I want to make that clear because I think when people hear what I'm saying, they're going to be like, yeah, but like if a man goes quiet on you and you're in a relationship with him and you go quiet back, then how are you making room for healthy discussion? What about couples therapies? Let me hear that word again. Couples what? Couples therapy? Are you married to him? Also, before I continue my point about going quiet back on a guy that's your boyfriend who's going quiet on you, my perspective on couples therapy is that, like, if we have to be doing couples therapy, babe, it's given we don't need to be together. I'm not going to lie, because most times couples therapy is happening because he doesn't want to do what I told him to do. Oh my God. I'm just saying, look, I date from a perspective of this has to work for me. Because that's how men date, yeah? When a woman does it, it's so highbrow and it's so like, oh my God, this is really controversial and this is so strange. But all the people who are doing the opposite and letting these men alley-oop on your head, let me know how that's working out for you. I would love to know. Because majority of you are not getting your needs met. But you're telling yourself, well, at least I have a boyfriend and we're working it out. We're working on it. What do you mean we're working on it? It's his problem. So why is it a we thing? Anyway, when a man goes quiet on me, I go quiet back. And I need to see how long you can go without speaking to me. And I'm not going to interrupt that silence. No. No. Because let's say a man has decided to go quiet because we had an argument and it's kind of evolved into this like ambiguous thing now where we're both kind of pissed off at each other. So he's gone quiet and I've gone quiet. I'm not gonna 2 days in message him and be like, look, this is really silly. Why can't we just talk about this? I'm not doing that. Do you know what I'm gonna do? When a man goes quiet on me, I want to let him really do his thing. I implore you, sir, to do your big one. Let me see how long you can actually go without speaking to me. Because now this has gone from us having an argument and us going quiet on each other to me now seeing, okay, let me see how long you're intending to go without hearing from me. Because now that's opened a different can of worms. Now this is about, okay, because if a man can go, 2 weeks without hearing from me, yeah, you don't like me. Not only do you not like me, you have found my replacement, which tells me that you have been on talking terms with my replacement for quite a while. And now that things have gone rocky with me and you, the replacement is primed and ready. The oven is fully preheated. Now it's time to put the bread inside. Like, I wasn't born yesterday. Okay? So you need to start learning to get comfortable with the silence. Get comfortable with the discomfort of the unknown. Because the silence is the unknown. The silence makes you feel unsettled. Because now you're like, what do I do with this silence? Every day you wake up and he's not messaging you, you're like, another day has gone by. See, my thing is, I wish a man would try it. If you go quiet on me, you're giving me opportunity to get the ick. Because once you've gone quiet on me, I'm now left to my devices of actually reviewing the events that led to the quietness happening. And I'm now looking at you differently, like, in the time this guy has not been speaking to me, I've actually come to realise I don't even think this is the guy for me, actually. Maybe I should move on. So this is why I say, if a guy can do the whole going quiet on you thing, he's gotten too comfortable. You're having too much sex with him. Another thing as well is, I remember being much younger and when I used to see, like, when your parents argue, right? I remember there was a thing that my mom used to say. It's this saying, faults are thick when love is thin. And she would say it when her and my dad would be just having another one of their arguments. And the meaning of faults are thick when love is thin, if that isn't already self-explanatory, essentially is that when you start getting the ick for someone, you start to see more of their flaws and you start to feel more compelled to point out their flaws. And when you feel more compelled to point out their flaws, it's like you seeing those flaws is changing how you see that person. So the love is thinner. Like, you don't really like that person as much, which is why you're so comfortable to point out their flaws. And this is why you're so irritated by them. And I think about that a lot because it's so true, actually. Because, like, that's how you know when a guy has gotten too comfortable with you. It's like when he starts to feel okay with criticizing you a lot, pointing out your flaws a lot, him having aggro towards you for stuff you've done, and like he's taking a long time to get over it. I feel like he's too comfortable. He's too comfortable, and you might need to be honest with yourself about the reality of where this relationship is going. But you see, the problem is, by the time you get to the stage where you've realized the man is too comfortable, you've overinvested, and that's part of why he's gotten too comfortable. You have contributed to his comfort way too much, way too soon. You've overinvested in this man. And what that means is you have definitely given him the impression that he's the chosen one in your life. You might have even given this guy money. I consider splitting bills with man barely any different to giving a man money. Let me tell you why, because that man is experiencing you at a bargain. And I know that someone's going to hear this and be like, yeah, but like women are not objects to be bought. Why can't we just connect with people we love? And why should we have to worry about money and bills? Like, if I've got my own money as a woman and he's got his own money, I don't mind paying my own money. Girl, please. That man is looking for someone to splice his bills in half. And you've done that for him. So he's benefiting. He's getting you at a discount. That's crazy. A woman. Do you know what you want? Do you know what the value of your presence is? Do you know what the value of your emotional labor is? Do you know what the value of your energy is? If you were to actually charge for your emotional labor, your physical labor, your company, and your time, most men wouldn't be able to afford you. And that's the point. How do you think I got to the perspective that I've got to? Why do you think I'm so able to walk away from men? How do you think I'm so comfortable with being single? Because I know the value of my energy, my emotions, my time, and my company. I'm not saying that every single man I meet, I'm holding a fucking contactless card machine and expecting him to tap his card and pay me for my time. That's not it. But I'm saying that for me to consider a man romantically, it has got to benefit me. So I don't even know how people are getting to this stage where like you've overinvested in a man, you're splitting bills with this man, I'm hearing the girls are now launching businesses with men. Guys, come on. I am not fucking my business partner. The only time I'm fucking my business partner is if he's my husband, because marriage is business. And that's a whole nother conversation, girl. But what I'm trying to say here is, when you've overinvested in a man, it's really hard for you to accept that you might have made the wrong decision. So you just carry on holding on to him. And that's what happens when a man goes quiet on you. He's comfortable going quiet on you, but you don't want to acknowledge that this guy going quiet on you is a clear indicator of this relationship is probably not going to hold up for longer than you think it will. But because you've overinvested, you don't want to leave your investment. Do you see why I say you shouldn't invest in men? Stop pouring your money into these men. And that goes all the way back to stop dating men who need your help. Stop dating men who need you to help them with their mortgage. Don't take out a mortgage as a man if you cannot afford to pay it off on your own. If you're looking for a woman to build a future with, why does a woman need to bring resources? She's a woman. And someone's going to argue, oh, but like this is disempowering. There are women who like building. Look, Madam Construction Worker, You guys be on these construction sites with no safety gear. That's the problem. You're on this construction site, but there's no insurance. If anything goes wrong and you get emotionally injured, you got nothing to fucking show for it. You're leaving with nothing but bruises and resentment. So even as a construction worker, you're supposed to be legally protected. Do you know that? In fact, if you're going into construction work, whether that is metaphorical construction or actual real construction work, you are supposed to be legally protected. Supposed to have insurance, whether that's covered by your employer or whatever establishment you're working for. You're supposed to have safety gear. That means hard helmets, hard hats. That means steel-capped boots. That means high-vis jackets. That means appropriate gloves and workwear, because you're on a construction site. Things can go wrong. So if you're out here doing up construction worker and building with a man, have you made sure you've got the appropriate uniform and the appropriate legal documents to ensure that should this man decide to neglect you, because negligence happens both in the workplace and in relationships with men. Should this man decide to neglect you, you have got legal advocacy in place. You guys don't even have that. What you got is a promise. Oh my God. There's a saying, a promise is only comfort to a fool. Now look, I'm Nigerian, yeah, and I've spent time living in Nigeria. In Nigeria, if someone says, I promise I'll pay you back, I promise I'll bring the money tomorrow, you're an idiot for believing that. They're not coming back with that money. So because I am experienced enough to know how crooks operate, and I'm experienced enough to understand that people use promises to distract you and buy themselves time, you can't fool me. You cannot trick me. So when I'm hearing that people are over-investing in men, oh, I started a business with my man, oh, I'm splitting bills with my man. Why would you do that? And I'm not saying this from a perspective of like trying to speak shame into you or over you, but sometimes shame works. I think some of us need to employ more shame. And I think some of us need to become more prideful as women, yeah? You need to have more pride and more ego. I know that modern psychology and therapy vibes tells us that we shouldn't be prideful, we shouldn't be leading with the ego. I think that if you're dating men, you should have a big ego and you should be prideful. I'm not saying that your big ego should interfere with your ability to be a kind person. I'm not saying that your pride should stop you from apologizing when you're actually in the wrong. I'm not saying that your ego should interfere with your ability to see things for what they truly are, rather than being delusional and expecting the world to bend at your feet. That's never what my opinion or stance is. What I'm saying is you ought to be more prideful and egotistical as a woman if you're dating a man. And how that pride and ego can show up is, I'll use myself as an example, right? I've got way too much pride to date a man who I've got to split bills with because I think I'm better than that. Now, the question of whether I think I'm better than women who split bills with men, that's not for me to say. That's for her. This is not about me versus women. It's about me versus men. I am better than men who split bills with women. I'm better than a situation where I'll be splitting bills. I'm just too good for that. So what do? I opt out of it. If the only men available to me right now in my local 1 mile square radius is men who are splitting bills, I'm not going to date any of them. I'll be single. It is what it is. I am prideful enough to know what I deserve. My ego is big enough for me to walk away from I don't care if you are chiseled jawline and 9-inch dick and you've got really nice teeth. If you're splitting bills, I'm sorry, that's not compatible with my ego. My ego is as big as my boobs, and I've got 32G boobs, so think about how big that is. Pride and ego, bring that back. Bring back pride, bring back ego, because you know what, the only people who have pride and ego are men, and look at how they're running laps around you guys. You're telling me that this man's got uncomfortable and you're letting him get comfortable? You guys are letting these men do silent treatment, and you lose your stamina too soon, and you're like, oh, I'm just going to message him. I don't want to be immature. I'm an adult. I don't mind messaging first. Stop that rubbish. Stop it now. Move your hand. Don't message him. Have the pride to be like, you know what? If this man is comfortable going quiet on me, I'm going to let him relax, babe. Let me see how far you're actually willing to go. Because that is a clear indicator of the trajectory of what this relationship is. If at all there will be a relationship left. I'm sorry, you guys, come on. You're not strict enough. And that is a huge problem. You guys are naked in front of these men too often. And I mean naked emotionally and naked physically. That's another thing. You see, if you are living with a guy, which in my very personal opinion, I'm not really a fan of the idea of living with a man who is not already either your husband or significantly financially looking after you. So, for example, an instance where I can see myself possibly living with a guy, I'll tell you. Let's say, okay, I'll use Nigeria as an example, right? Let's say I'm in Nigeria and I meet a man who I really like, and he's ticking all my boxes, babe. Yeah. He's ticking all my boxes, right? And those boxes include that he is financially taking care of me. Let's say that he gets an apartment. Even if the apartment's in his name, right? Not in my name, but it's in his name because we're only dating, right? Apartment is in his name. He's paying all of the bills. He's paying for the driver. He's paying for the cleaning and cooking staff. All I've got to do is just show up and be loved. I don't mind living with him because I know that, okay, Nigeria is somewhere I'm spending at most 6 months of the year because I've obviously got a life in London. And if I'm happy in this relationship, I'll spend 6 months there. If he's covering all, not some, not most, all of the bills, I don't mind living with him. Now, here's the caveat though, and this links to my next point about nudity, physical nudity. If I am living with a man, granted, all my requirements of a man who I'm living with are met, like I just listed, I'm still not going to be physically naked in front of him all the time. Now, I'm not saying that you should go to the bathroom and change each time, but I'm saying that he shouldn't get desensitized to your nudity because that means he's going to get too comfortable. Guys, I'm telling you, it's a man at the end of the day. You're probably thinking, yeah, but like we live together. This is my boyfriend of however many years or months. Like we're comfortable with each other. I don't mind, like, you know, I'm creaming my body after being in the shower in front of him. No. Do you know what you should do instead? When you finish in the shower, yeah, you take your clothes in with you that you're going to wear after you finish showering. Whether that's your house robe, something, take it in with you. Do your skincare in the bathroom. You come out of the shower with your robe on. You could be naked under that robe, that's fine. But what I'm trying to get at here is value your nudity. This is going to sound so conservative and so archaic and so auntie-like in terms of, like, you know, the bitter aunties who are like, young girls of today are not wearing clothes. That is really not my pee here. What I'm trying to say, my position on this is that there's a power that nudity holds, that you can lose that power when you live with a man and he's seen too much. That's how he can get too comfortable. If you've been in a relationship before with a man and it's long term and you're naked all the time, girl, you know what I mean. You know what I mean. Let's not cap, okay? I'm not saying he's going to stop being horny for you. I'm not saying he's going to stop being attracted to you. I'm saying he's going to get too comfortable because when you guys was first dating, you were not naked all the time, were you? No, you weren't. The only times he would see you naked was when you guys would fuck. And for you guys to get to a place where you're fucking, he has gingered and pampered you well. Ideally. Hopefully. I'm hoping he better. Because that's a whole nother conversation in itself about having sex with a man who has not gingered you well. Do you know what ginger is? Ginger is like sweeten you up. He has, sorry, guys. Again, as I said about having pride and ego, value your pussy. Even if you're not going to expect a man to financially take care of you, I mean, I don't know any other way for a man to take care of me because I'm not a child. I will always have my own money, but I like to have his money too. So if a man is not getting me to a place where I'm going to be wet enough to sleep with him, how is he seeing me naked, please? Why I'm banging on about nudity and living with a man is because living with a man is already a big privilege, and men can get very. I've seen it happen with my two eyes. Not to me personally. Well, it's kind of happened to me, but not on a scale of like a long-term relationship. It's happened to me where I started living with a guy that I was seeing. This was in Nigeria, and for what it was worth, it served its purpose for me. It was very beneficial for me at the time. If I meet a guy in the more recent portion of the timeline of my life, and he's exactly the guy who I'm telling you that I was living with back then in Nigeria for like I was dating him for like a month or something. I know, time flies when you're in Nigeria, I promise you, it's crazy. But anyway, if I had met that guy now, with everything I've evolved into as a woman and how much I know myself and how my self-worth has multiplied since then, would I have lived with him? No. I still would have dated him. I probably still would have been attracted to him, but dating, I don't know if I would have dated him. And I'm saying this because in that brief stint of me being with that guy and having lived with him, he got comfortable very fast because I got comfortable very fast. And I'm not saying that like you are responsible for how a man chooses to treat you, because ultimately as human beings, we all make choices. However, you can stoke the flame. You can pour a bit of gasoline on that flame, girl. You can contribute to the chaos. You absolutely can play a role in how men treat you, because men are looking to you for guidance on how you want to be treated. So what you allow is what will continue. And this is not to victim blame. And even the phrase victim blaming, I take issue with sometimes, because using the phrase victim blame in response to someone identifying the part where you enabled the situation to get to what it was, victim blaming already labels you as victim. You've already embraced the title of victim by calling it victim blaming when someone holds you accountable for the role you played in your own demise here. And again, I am not saying you're responsible for how a man chooses to treat you. What I'm saying is you're responsible for the treatment that you welcome repetitively. And if you decide to call that victim blaming, you have embraced and welcomed and chosen the position of victim. Language matters way more than you think, especially the language that you use to speak to yourself. So when I'm saying that moving in too soon with a man and being naked around him all the time is too much access, like even FaceTime, I'm not even about to talk about the whole revenge porn thing and men taking screenshots and posting on news later. That's not even where I'm going with this, even though that's a whole thing to consider. I'm saying, you see when you're FaceTiming your boyfriend and you're naked on FaceTime, that's too much access. He's too comfortable. It's too much. You're going to make him too comfortable. It's too much. It's too much. Let's just remember the power of our nudity. Okay? I am not here to be some like conservative anti-nudity person. I feel like I've got to triple reiterate that, because I probably sound like some sort of like strict old woman who's like, you should not be naked in front of a man unless you're married to him. I'm just saying that the same nudity can really get you far, even if you're already in a relationship with a man you're living with. So for example, let's say, you only occasionally are naked around him. That is still better than always being naked around him, like always letting him see. He doesn't need to see all that too much, because he's not going to value the access he has to your nudity. And that's how these guys get too comfortable. Because deep down, men always want what they can't have. And it's not that you reducing the amount of nudity means he can't have access to you. It's just that there's more for him to feel curious about. There's more for him to crave. A man can and should still crave you, even if you live together. Now, someone listening to this is going to argue, well, you're not married, So why are you talking about how things should be when you're living with a man or when you're in a long-term partnership? This is the advantage I have. The fact that I'm not married is the advantage. Women who are married, now, no hate to the marriage community, but a lot of you are stuck. I'm not going to lie. Like, a lot of you are not happy. A lot of you, your lives were better when you were single, but you're too far in to admit it. And you're kind of trapped now because you're the one who's the breadwinner as a woman. And if you split with him, he's getting half of everything that you made at the time when you married him. So, whelp. And also, you married a man who it's just going to be too awkward for you to leave him now because you've made your whole entire identity about being a wife. Welp. So the single women are actually the people who have access to the most freedom. The child-free single women are probably having the best quality of life right now. Unless there are women who have married well and married correctly. There are women who have not only married well and married correctly, but have chosen the correct baby fathers. And I say baby fathers in plural because sometimes, you know what, you can do everything by the book, to the best of your ability, to the highest level of your self-worth, with your own best interests at heart, and a man can still man. So if you move on and have a baby with someone else, you're going to still make sure you pick the best option based on what's available to you. So if you have multiple baby fathers, at least those multiple baby fathers are fulfilling their role in your life as a man as they should. But most women are not in that situation. Most women are with men who are too comfortable and they are trapped and stuck because they've got the wrong side of the pride. When I tell women be more prideful, it's almost like women don't need to learn how to be prideful because they are prideful enough to stick by their bums of men who are doing nothing for them. And the pride is based on this like shame of like, oh, I don't want to be divorced. I don't want to be a divorced woman because there's a stain attached to being a woman who moves on from what doesn't work for her. So your pride is working against you. You're prideful in all the wrong places, girl. Instead of being prideful enough to even avoid a situation like that in the first place. Now, another thing that is an indicator that this man is too comfortable is when you are the one apologizing more than he does. This is not to be conflated with you genuinely apologizing for being in the wrong. Okay? But if you find that you are the more apologetic one, you've got to do more of the groveling and begging and trying to get him to forgive you and really, really trying to like, what's the word? Show him that you're willing to earn his trust back. Girl, remember you're the woman here. Just remember you're the star of this show. You're always going to be the star of the show. I can't imagine how anybody can consider it disempowering to be told that as a woman, you are the star of the relationship. There are many women who hear my message and they just don't like it because they feel like it's not fair to men. Why are you worried about what's fair to men? Do you see these men being worried about what's fair to you? I saw an article today that said that men who have these, you know, the AI robot girlfriend. The headline says, men are creating AI girlfriends and then verbally abusing them. Men are creating AI girlfriends and then verbally abusing them. Even in a digital world where inanimate women who don't have real life autonomy are in partnerships with men, virtual partnerships with men, these men are still abusing these non-human women, let alone real life women who they know they can control. And you guys are worrying about, oh, but I don't want him to think I'm a bad person. I would very much like you to think I'm a bad person. I am actually vermin. I am the scum of the earth. If that's what it means for a woman to have enough pride and self-worth to walk away from what doesn't benefit her, I am all those things and more. I am Elphaba herself. Sorry, what? You guys are too nice to men. There have been times when I've seen guys do this to their girlfriends in real life where like the guy will deliberately just like start silent treatment out of nowhere in real time, in person, because he wants her to apologize, and he knows that if he does a silent treatment thing, she's gonna panic and be like, what's wrong? And then when she notices that he's not being as like responsive and social and friendly as he normally is, and she's going to take it as an indicator that she needs to go apologize to him. You lot are letting that pattern fly. Side eye of all side eyes to that. Let a man do silent treatment on me. That's an invitation for me to move on. That's a clear indicator that you are okay with stomaching the risk of me replacing you. Because look, someone like me, you go quiet on me too long, I'm going to find someone else. I'm not going to lie. I'm in demand, babes. I'm hot. I'm attractive. I'm beautiful. And I will replace you. As a man, if you're in my life, you need to be on your feet, on your tippy toes. Because this isn't somewhere where you can afford to just be comfortable for the sake of it. Yeah? I'm not about to be allowing you to think that the power is in your hand just because you're a man. Now, another thing, similar to when I was saying you're naked too often, I think that some of you have become too predictable to these men and they get bored of it. And that's when they get too comfortable. And that's when you notice the quality of your relationship drops because you're too predictable. Now, what does being too predictable mean? Well, do you remember what you used to be like when you were first dating him and it was the super early days and there was a level of excitement that he had because he didn't know if you were going to like something or not, and he wanted to just get a gauge of what your taste is, what your perspective is, what you enjoy. Do you remember those days? Do you remember? Do you remember when you were first getting to know him and he would do sweet things for you because he knew that, like, if he does that cute thing, you're more likely to warm up to him? Do you remember? Think back, far back. I know it was such a long time ago because you've been letting things slide for so long, but think back. Visit the nooks and crannies of your mind and try and find that memory. Because if you're telling me there's no memory exists at all, you need to explain to me how you even got to dating this man if he wasn't even courting you like that in the first place. But anyway, if you can't find that memory because it's so tucked away and it was so long ago, that's the problem. You're too predictable. You're too easy to please. Those are like the same thing, essentially. Being too predictable and being too easy to please. It's like, I'm sorry, guys, but you need to put these men to work. I know that society is trying to do this thing where it's like, oh, men and women are equal and we should just allow men to feel loved as they are. No, men don't fucking deserve that. We're not spending enough time calling these men ugly and unlovable because that's what they actually fucking are. You know why I say that? Because a man will never hesitate to come into the comments of a woman who is declaring her own self-love and self-worth enough to be specific about the type of future she wants for a man. And you will see in the comments men being like, oh, but she's a 2 out of 10. Oh, but she's ugly though. Oh, why would a man want to marry her? You guys are not calling these men ugly and unlovable enough. You guys are letting ugly, undesirable men get away with being chased and doted on by women who are way beyond their league in the first place. You guys are letting men get too comfortable. Let's bring back calling men ugly and unlovable because that's what they truly are deep down, and they know it. And that's why they have no hesitation to tell us that when they see us declaring our own self-worth, so much so that the self-worth we're declaring excludes them. This is why recently I went on the We Need to Talk podcast with Paul Brunson. If you haven't seen that episode, you should really watch it. It's probably one of my favorite interviews I've ever done. And there's a snippet that was posted of that episode on my Instagram as a shared collaboration post with the podcast Instagram page, where I was talking about marriage. And I was saying that for me personally, to marry a man, I would require the love that means that I'm getting land, properties, and assets in my name, because that's the only love that I will recognize from a straight man. You should see the comment section. It's all these men who are very hideous, very poor, calling me ugly and saying that, oh, how dare I demand that? I'm not good looking enough to demand that. Now, there's two things going on in those responses from men. Number one, it's ugly men calling a woman who is far beyond their league ugly so they can feel better about themselves. And two, It's men who were never, ever going to be considered for selection in the first place, feeling excluded at the idea of a woman who never even knew they existed, essentially implying that she would not choose any of them as possible partners. Now, what's interesting about that is men do not hesitate to call you ugly because you do not fit the standard they see in their mind of a woman who has enough of the value to demand a marriage that benefits her, because men assign you worth based on your appearance. That's right. Men assign you value and humanity based on how fuckable you are. That's right. Which is why if men don't consider you attractive enough in their eyes, and you have the gumption and the nerve to love yourself out loud enough to say that you would only marry for a love that involves you having assets and land and properties put in your name by the man who's marrying you, they will hurry to tell you that you're ugly, because they know that in a world that values a woman's appearance, that's the underpinning factor that determines whether or not she's worthy of marriage. So that's why I need to start calling these men ugly, because they're ugly and they're unlovable and they know it. So yeah, bring back calling men ugly. You guys are too nice to men. You guys have enabled men so much so that they now feel comfortable calling women ugly for expecting a love that actually nurtures and fulfills them. This is where we are now because of you guys, because of you lot who are loving these men for free. You guys are loving these men when they've got nothing for you. That's why they have the gumption to turn around and call you ugly for expecting more than they can give you. So if we all collectively decided to ignore men out of existence, think about how peaceful the world would be. Psych! The world will not be peaceful because men have no purpose and no sense of identity outside of women giving them that. So men need women, whereas for us, men are an option, an add-on, if you like. I see marriage and partnerships with men as an add-on to my life. My life is amazing regardless, right? I have everything I need, and I mean that. I have enough money to do all the things that I've been wanting to do so far. I have the love that I need in my life to feel a sense of home and familiarity and security with the people who love me. I have young people in my life who I really deeply cherish and adore and care about, so much so that I don't feel this maternal desire to have children because I'm already experiencing the important role of being an auntie and an older sister to very young people in my life. I have a apartment that I live in that I really, really love. I have all the clothes and the designer stuff that I want. I can decide on a random Tuesday to go pole dance if I want to. If I want to go on holiday next week, I can do so. So if a man wants to come into my life, he's coming into my life on my terms, not his terms. And when a man hears me saying that, he rushes to call me ugly. But if this same man were to be blindfolded, i.e. having his eyes covered, and I back my ass up and whine on his body, he's going to have an erection, regardless of what he thinks my face looks like. Because men are so tied to their horniness that they think in their minds that they can overlook their own desires and choose a woman who is the prettiest of them all, when really most of them are going to settle for what they can get. Men are only going to fuck who they can fuck. Whoever allows them is who they will fuck. And that's why they are so imprisoned by their own ugliness that they feel they have to remind everybody that everyone else is ugly, because that's how they feel about themselves inside. So you have to have the kind of impenetrable self-esteem as a woman where you don't fall for this kind of thing. If left for men, they want black women like myself to feel ugly so they can have more access to us. I know I'm not ugly. I know I'm stunning. Men pay to be under my feet. And that's men who aren't just white men. I get black men too. And sometimes these are very good looking men. So I don't have any lack when it comes to male validation or male company or males doing what I want them to do. When I come across men on the internet who feel compelled to call me ugly, it's interesting because you definitely must find your mum ugly then, because I don't probably look that different to your mum. I know I definitely look better than your mum, but phenotypically speaking, Me and your mum have way more in common than the woman that you are actually going to be fantasizing about being with. So where does that leave us both? Hmm? Because if I'm ugly, then what's your mum? Sorry to that lady. And I hate we have to bring that lady into it, whoever that lady is. I hope she's having a nice day. Sorry, auntie, but your son thinks you're ugly because he thinks I'm ugly. And I know for sure that I'm out of his league. So now what? And this comes back to me saying, you guys have emboldened men so much that they now feel comfortable calling you ugly and you believe it. So you guys are dating at your level of self-esteem. So I can tell a woman's self-esteem by the boyfriend that she's chosen to be with. And if I'm around you and your boyfriend and I can see how your boyfriend navigates conflict with you, I can tell exactly what your self-esteem level is because I can see what you're tolerating. Because personally, I wouldn't have that. But me, I'm not going to put mouth. Listen, boy, you would think that I'm the kind of friend who like, oh, if my homegirl's in a relationship and a boyfriend or something, I'm going to get involved. No, unless you come to ask me, unless you go out of your way to like maybe vent to me or like ask me my opinion, I'm not saying a word because I trust that you know what you're doing. You're a grown adult person. You're old enough. If you're old enough to be dating a man, then you're old enough to know that the man you choose is the life you've chosen for yourself because men date at the level of their self-esteem too. So whatever that man's life looks like is pretty much what your life is about to look like by proxy. So if that man's in a place in his life where things are scattered and he's struggling and he's stressed and his sense of self is impaired by the conditions that he's living through, that's absolutely going to rub off on you, even if you got your own money. Because now you're spending more than you would have spent if you were single. Because if you think about it this way, yeah, if you are going halves with a man on like living costs, travel costs, you are spending more than you would spend if you were single. Half of what two people are spending is still more than what one person is spending. You might think, no, it's the same as what one person is spending. No, it's not. No, the fuck it's not. Because more time, it's not just this equal halves. Sometimes, like, your man's going to buy more things than he should, and you're going to be the one paying for half of that. Why are you doing that? I'm never going to understand that. Because to me, it just comes across as like, you chose that man because you didn't think you could get anyone else, and you're scared you're going to be alone, and that's the best you can do. When you start to look at men as, is this the best I can do? I promise you your perspective will change dramatically. And it's not to say that like, one man will ever be everything for you, but you can start somewhere. Because for me, it's like when I need to reground my perspective, when I see a man's getting a bit too comfortable, I have to ask myself, is this really the best I can do? Like, is this man the best I'm ever going to experience in a man? Because if the answer is no, why am I sweating? If the answer is no, this isn't the best I can do, and there's probably a man out there who can and will love me even more, with even more resources and with even more of his might, then why am I tolerating this from this guy? A lot of women have got a scarcity mindset, and that's why they allow men to get too comfortable. And before we wrap up this episode, I want to remind you that I've got a Patreon. Patreon.com/the If you aren't already familiar, I've got a Patreon where I share bonus podcast episodes, where I share exclusive ebooks, including the 64-page Dilemma Manual, which is a free ebook where I discuss the dilemmas that have been anonymously sent in to me, and I give my own perspective and opinion on how I would handle that and how best to maneuver that without losing your sense of self. I also share these voice notes. I'm the friend who will send you a 20-minute voice note, but I don't do that to my homegirls anymore. I now just do it on my Patreon. So if something happens, or if a topic comes to mind that I just think I want to talk like I'm talking to one of my girls, I have a little voice note thing going on over there. So the Patreon, if you are interested and you want to be amongst women who are similarly like-minded, don't forget the Patreon has got a fucking popping group chat over there full of the disobedient deviants, which is what I call the people on my Patreon, because the Patreon tier. There's only one tier on Patreon. It's called the Disobedient Deviants. The Disobedient Deviants is a place where there's a group chat on the Patreon, and I'm telling you, this group chat is always popping off. So much so that a bunch of people on the Patreon last year, without me even knowing, these girls decided to meet up in a dungeon and dominate this guy, and they made him pledge allegiance to the Republic of Nigeria. But aside from that, the Patreon group chat is where you'll genuinely find community. And I don't use that word loosely. I really mean it, because when you are a woman who is upgrading yourself mentally and stripping yourself of old ways of thinking that have hindered you, you're not always going to find that familiarity in your existing friend groups. And it's not because your friends hate you or don't want the best for you. It's because they don't know how to. They just don't have, they're not there yet. You really need to have people who are in a similar mindset to you, because sometimes you can quickly give up and you can lose stamina and you revert to what's familiar. But the Patreon will stop you from giving up on yourself. So if you're interested, patreon.com/theslumflower. It is a place where it's price accessible. It's like $10. But obviously, I think if you're subscribing via the App Store, which is the best place to do it, by the way, because the Patreon app is so much easier to use than the web browser. I think there's like a $2 or $1 charge that's added because it's on the App Store. I can't control that. I'm so sorry. But £10, $10 is the fee. And I'm keeping it that way because I want it to be as accessible as possible. So if you're interested, patreon.com/theslumflower. Now, before I wrap up this episode in 5 minutes, I really want to make it clear that this is not to say that you should not fall in love. This is not to say that you shouldn't trust in the feeling of letting go and relaxing into being adored by a man who loves you. What I'm trying to say is that intimacy with men is not a one-time consent thing where just because you gave him consent one time, it means he's got infinite consent. So if we can agree on that, then similarly, it means that a man earning your trust and your grace and your devotion, not even devotion, I'm not devoting myself to a man, but your affection is something that he has to earn and re-earn. Okay? Because men will piss you off sometimes because they're human beings, right? A man cannot be everything for you, but he can be something to you, and you decide what he is to you. And I just think that when you allow men to get too comfortable, they start to tell you who you are. And once you believe them, you have given away your power. Your power, your autonomy is all you have in this world. You can make money, spend money, lose money, make that money again. But your time, you will never get that time back. They say your 20s are your best years. I disagree. The life that you are living right now, the time you have right now is your best years. Your best time is now. Use that wisely. Any of us can encounter a situation where we might lose our sight, God forbid. We might lose our legs, God forbid. We might lose our health, God forbid. And because of that, we'll be looking back on the times when we had the privilege of vision, of the ability to walk, of the ability to feed yourself, of the ability to be able to have the freedom and autonomy to go about your day without needing extra help. And this is not to shame or look down on disability. This is to reckon with the reality that any of us can be in a position where we lose the freedom that we once knew. So treat your freedom like something that can be taken away. And sometimes you might not lose your freedom through a freak accident or medical negligence or even illness. You can lose your freedom by picking the wrong man. Sometimes you pick the wrong man, you have a baby for him, and that pregnancy changes the course of your life forever. You can die during pregnancy, God forbid. You can develop a long-term illness during pregnancy and post-pregnancy, God forbid. You can lose your sense of confidence. And you know how the girls are talking about losing their spark after being pregnant? That happens too, especially if you have a baby for a broke man. That's more than likely when you're going to lose your spark. You can lose a lot by picking a man, by picking the wrong man. So whilst this is a conversation about, oh, he's gotten too comfortable, this is always going to be bigger than that. This podcast and these discussions about men will always be bigger than men. It's about yourself, the life you want, and how dedicated you are to seeing the outcome that truly suits and matches the life that you want to live for yourself. Because this is your only life. And you can't afford to get too comfortable with the idea of a man getting too comfortable in your life. You don't have that time. You don't have that time. I don't care if you're 21 listening to this. You don't have that time. I don't care if you're 39 listening to this. None of us have the time to throw away on a man. You are better off spending your whole summer binge watching a series that you enjoy than spending your whole summer running around after a man who's doing nothing for you, splitting bills with him and telling yourself that you're falling in love and experiencing the spontaneity of life. Girl, come on. Come on. Think about your time as a resource that once it's spent, it's gone. Just like fossil fuels. We can't replace the fossil fuels, girl. Once it's all gone, it's gone. So we've got about 6 months left of humanity before things hit the fan. So what are you going to do for the next 6 months? No, I'm joking. Not to be existentially scary here. We've got a lot more than 6 months. But if you look at the reality of where the world is moving in and look at the reality of what life really means, you don't have time to throw away on these boys. So with that, I bid you farewell. Thank you for listening to this first episode of season 3. And I'll catch you in the next episode. Yes. Take care of yourself and be kind to yourself.